And welcome in everyone to this AlphaZero DeepMind Roundtable discussion here on Chess.com. The world was once again taken by storm when Google's crew over there at DeepMind released the Assessing Game Balance with AlphaZero research into new versions, different variants of chess. There's been a lot of content over the internet in the last week, and with me here are some very, very special guests. We have the we have several people who have been core and key to this project over there with DeepMind. And to start, we'll say that we have Nenad Tomashev, who is a research engineer at DeepMind. And Nenad, before I go any further and introduce your partners here, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about how you got involved with DeepMind and your exact contributions with the AlphaZero project?
Thanks, Danny. I joined DeepMind roughly 5 years ago, so I was actually at Google before in California. And then I kind of developed a taste for rain and poor weather, so I decided to move to London because it's obviously a much better choice. And yeah, I've done my PhD in artificial intelligence. It just seemed like the best possible place to pursue that further. So I've been working on machine learning and artificial intelligence in healthcare for a couple of years. And we were trying to build tools to predict when and how, let's say, patients are going to get sick, and what you can potentially do about that to help clinicians make the best decisions. And towards the end of that, I got involved with the AlphaZero team, and in particular with the chess project. And I've been working on it together with Ulrich, and fortunately also for us, Vladimir.
Okay. Well, a lot to unpack there, just with a lot of things you said. We know that the those who follow the machine learning and general just neural network communities are going to be interested in all the things that you do over there in the DeepMind project. But before we go, I want to now go to Ulrich Paki, who's the research engineer and scientist. Also, Ulrich, same question to you. Tell us how you got involved in the DeepMind project and what your specific contributions were for the chess aspect of the DeepMind project, which is AlphaZero.
Hey, Danny. Hi, everyone. Hi, I'm Ulrich. I grew up in South Africa and watched the whole development of chess engines from afar. I always wished I could have been a part of it. I've been working as an AI researcher for almost the last 20 years and joined DeepMind 5 years ago. And 2 years ago, I was roped into AlphaZero. And it's been a thrilling ride since then. Both Nenad and I have trained new models. We've tweaked AlphaZero. We've done some of the mathematics that you see in the paper, and we hope it's really exciting to everyone listening.
Great. Well, our last guest here doesn't really need an introduction to the chess community. He's the 14th world chess champion, the one and only Vladimir Kramnik. But Vladimir, you and I have actually had live shows before discussing some of the work you've already contributed toward AlphaZero. But with this sort of different stage here, tell us a little bit, if you would, again, remind everybody of the story of how DeepMind contacted you to be involved and what your chess contributions have been to the AlphaZero team.
Well, as usually happens in good and successful projects, which hopefully is the one we will be talking about today, it was quite accidental. I mean, somehow we got in contact with Demis Hassabis, who is the CIO of a company of DeepMind, and he's a big chess lover, and he's a very good chess player himself. Yeah, actually, both gentlemen, Nenad and Ulrich, are also quite good players. I think you are both like 2,100, 200, something like that. Yeah, or even more maybe.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. I mean, prominent players, I would say, club chess players. So, and then we just met, we started to talk, and I had this idea. I think Demis, he liked it very much. And then we started to make some brainstorming, some things started to pop up, and finally we ended up working on this for, well, I would say more than half a year at minimum, yeah, if not more, yeah. So that was the way it is. I mean, as you know, probably I had this idea and those thoughts already long ago as a chess professional, and now I could see that there was the quite a popularity of future random chess, so there is a certain demand on new types of chess. And then I had also an idea. I always thought, okay, the rules of chess were never completely the same. Yeah, they were developing with centuries. Yeah, so the rules we use now, they were quite different 10 centuries ago. So I had this interesting idea. So why don't we now with AlphaZero, with artificial intelligence, we have program, we have maybe for the first time in the history a chance to make a check-in of any new variation in a very short period of time, and to see if it works, how does it work mathematically, aesthetically, and so on and so on. And yes, here we started, and it was a very interesting time. I really enjoyed working with you guys. It was also very pleasant humanly, and extremely exciting from the scientific and chess players' point of view.
Well, it's nice to know the work was exciting, because the results were super interesting and fascinating for everybody. Before we dive into a lot of questions we already have, and I want to give a huge shout out to all the communities that contributed over the last 48 hours, active folks in the TCEC, CCC communities, on Reddit, on Twitter, all over the place, everyone throwing some questions, and we tried to do our best to gather those. And in and on that note, it's our last call to action right now. If you are watching the show and you want to get involved on social media, you can tweet at the official Chess.com handle. You can use the hashtag AlphaZero to make it even more obvious what you're talking about. Throw us some of your questions. We will be awarding some diamond memberships just for your efforts, but we know that for fans, just the opportunity to ask a question and maybe have it read to a crew like this is the big prize. So without any further ado, we're going to jump right in here. And so I want to ask some basic questions to help set the tone, because without assuming that everybody understands exactly what this project is, I'm gonna go to you, Nenad, and ask you first. So explain, if you could, in the simplest terms, the too long didn't read version. What exactly is AlphaZero, like at its core, right? It's not a traditional chess computer CPU that's playing chess. And on that note, how does the machine learning neural net process differ from what a normal, just at its core, fundamentally what chess engines traditionally do versus what AlphaZero does differently?
Yeah, so I guess one can go in various depth when it comes to that question. But in terms of the main operating principle, it's that traditional chess engines that have been developed over a long period of time were a kind of a human attempt at creating rules pertaining to the game of chess that would sort of approximate human evaluation, human thinking about the position, which was a long, laborious process. And I mean, as you can imagine, and as we all know, as a chess player, when you look at the position, you get a sort of a feeling for whether it's good for you or not. You're not seeing numbers and formulas. Maybe you count material on the board based on the rules we've all been taught, but you're not actually thinking in terms in which chess engines think. So this is a kind of an approximation that has been developed over a long period of time. And with an approach like AlphaZero, essentially there is artificial neural network, which isn't really like the human brain, but in some sense, the neural networks that have been developed in the artificial intelligence world were inspired by processes and structures that the human brain also has. And it's a system that plays against itself many times. And at the very beginning, it's pretty bad because it doesn't know anything. It doesn't know the rules. It can just move the pieces randomly around on a board and things happen. And eventually there is a main, one side loses. And then slowly over time, it learns from the wins and the losses. And it improves its play. And after a certain number of games played, a certain number of steps, it has learned how to play decent chess, then very good chess, and soon after chess at a very high level. And I think AlphaZero, as it trains, plays many millions of games. And despite that, because we have a very good infrastructure, we can get to that point within a day. But as for the structure of AlphaZero itself, so it has two main components in a way. This network that looks at the board position and produces a kind of a an approximation, an assessment of the position, the value, as we say. And there is also the policy, the way we call it, that comes off of the same kind of a computation that gives you the candidate moves that you might consider playing. And then there is a rule essentially for how to construct a tree of variations from all of these candidate moves and the values that you get from the leaves of the tree as you expand and go forth. And at the end of the day, all of those values from the bottom of the tree kind of get aggregated in a way to give you your assessment of the current position and the move that you've spent the longest time looking at, which is the move that ultimately yields the highest value. At the end, ends up being the move that AlphaZero plays as its main.
So then, okay, so, and again, I'm doing my best to kind of unpack a lot of stuff. So then if, because the way people normally think of traditional chess engines is, the math influence of how we value pieces, the ultimate goal of checkmate, deter and help the computer make decisions, process some elimination and the pros and cons of a move, because it increases the value of the position. So if there is no evaluation at the core of AlphaZero, it's not evaluating the position in the traditional chess engine sense, how exactly does it eventually learn one? I'm asking this question to Ulrich now. So if it's the moves as Nenad's talking about, that eventually over time it teaches itself, how does that eventually lead to some sort of evaluation that makes it play good moves?
Danny, I could maybe relate it to the way humans learn. So AlphaZero learns with a system called reinforcement learning. So imagine you start playing chess and you blunder a queen. And so your brain is this giant pattern recognition engine, a super efficient pattern recognition engine.
I blunder queens a lot, so that's okay. So this is not hard for me.
So if you do, there would be some, what we call a reinforcement learning signal or a reward that tells you that that was a bad move. And somehow certain connections are strengthened in your brain and certain connections are not strengthened, so that hopefully you won't blunder a queen again. And then the next time you play a game, you probably play slightly better. Now, AlphaZero works in exactly the same principle. So it plays itself many, many times over. If it loses a game, it has a technique in which it alters the neural network ever so slightly so that it would not repeat the same mistakes in very, very similar patterns. And that function is slowly optimized to give you essentially a way to evaluate positions in a statistical way.
Okay, well, staying with you, Ulrich, then what exactly would be the training steps for that process, right? If we're talking about training AlphaZero like it was a baby human being, right? It learns to make bad moves. What exactly is the training process then? How long does it take for it to train properly and recognize that it doesn't want to blunder its queen anymore? Is that like one game for a neural net, or it takes a lot for those synapses to correctly connect?
It's far less efficient than humans. So AlphaZero probably plays the number of games Vladimir has played in his whole life 1,000 times over. It might play 1 million games to learn very, very optimal strategies. And like Nenad mentioned, when it starts learning, it barely knows how to move the pieces. It knows which moves are legal, but almost nothing more than that. And then it slowly discovers by chance that one could checkmate. And so it knows that certain pieces have slightly better value than others. As soon as it knows how to checkmate, it can play better endgames. And maybe after 60,000 iterations, you see some familiar opening pattern appear, and then some would disappear again. And maybe after 200,000 iterations, we have a player that is almost close to superhuman.
That's fascinating that it literally takes 200,000 numbers. Vladimir, how long do you think it takes a beginning human chess player to learn that they shouldn't blunder their queen? Like how many games?
You see, first of all, when you learn chess as a beginner, somebody explains you what to do and what not to do. Yeah, I mean, it's never really happens, I guess. Yeah, that you are given a chess set and then you simply start to learn from complete zero. So in this sense, I wouldn't agree with Ulrich. Of course, the machine is much quicker and much more efficient. I mean, if I wouldn't have learned, anything about chess. I mean, from books, from my teachers, I don't think I would ever achieve a level even of international mastery. I mean, it takes a long time. So, so the main difference is that AlphaZero is learning everything by itself. I mean, not the slightest hint. Yeah.
Right.
So that's why you cannot really compare this. I think I've landed less queens than AlphaZero in my life, but it still doesn't make me a better chess player.
Right. I guess that makes sense. Well, let me move to our first question, actually, from the community. We're going to jump into what was kind of a simple question, but got a lot of upvotes from the Reddit community, because I think it hits at the core of what a lot of people want to have in terms of transparency into the DeepMind project. And so I'm going to come back to you, Nenad, and just ask a very direct question. From Google's perspective, from DeepMind's point of view, what are the main limitations for making AlphaZero? And maybe I'll broaden it to a neural net machine learning approach to chess. What are the main limitations for making it even more powerful?
Well, that is an excellent question. And I think if we knew all the answers, we would probably do all of those things. But in practice, I think also what we've seen with AlphaZero in chess is that after a certain time, there is a certain peak of performance that it hits. And it's conceivable that if you would let it train for, I don't know, much longer, maybe it could get stronger. But there are some open questions as to whether it is necessarily, optimal in some more fundamental sense. What I would say, though, is that AlphaZero is just one project and just one reinforcement learning, which is the technique that Ulrich was mentioning, project within DeepMind as a company. So there have been systems that DeepMind has developed that have come after. And the mission of the company, the mission of DeepMind, is to aim to develop general artificial intelligence solutions. And what we mean by general is that they're applicable across multiple domains, in this case, across multiple games. And we've seen with AlphaZero that it has mastered not only chess, but also Go and Shogi, and it has seen some other applications since. So the direction that DeepMind is taking with this is that we are not necessarily trying to drill deep into a particular game as such, but rather to build systems that can tackle more and more challenges of different sorts. So as a concrete example there, mu0 is one, let's say, offspring of AlphaZero, if you will, in spirit. It's a slightly different method, so it has also been published by DeepMind. And it took a step. So mu0 can also play chess, and it can play at the same strength that AlphaZero can. But it kind of took a step from being able to handle board games to being able to play, let's say, video games, 3D environments, something that's more realistic looking, somewhat closer to the real world. And the difference there, when you compare the approaches, because again, it's based on AlphaZero in spirit, is that it is like a model-driven reinforcement learning approach. And what this means is that it's not always interacting directly with the environment / game as it plans, but rather has an internal model of what this environment might look like. And when you look at the trio variations and how it's thinking in terms of that internal model. So it would be more akin to, a chess player, even, if you will, just trying to keep track of what is on the board in their minds, rather than actually it being played out on the board in front of you where you can see it, all the way to the end. And that's turned out to be, again, a somewhat more general approach. And the company is working on multiple such types of things. But when it comes to chess in particular, I think that it is amazing to see just how many ideas the appearance of AlphaZero has sparked in the community. So I'm pretty sure that we will see some improvements along the way.
Yeah, Danny, can I add to the limitations question? So
please do. Yeah.
AlphaZero's limitations are very much like human limitations. So imagine you learn chess by playing many, many, many tournament games. So you are used to a certain kind of typical position that you find in tournaments.
Right.
Now, if someone brings you a position that is a chess problem, that is designed to look unlike any tournament position you've ever seen before, you as a human would probably sit and think, much harder and deeper than you would in a typical game you find in practice. And the same is actually true for AlphaZero when it's confronted with these, what we call out of distribution positions. It may take a factor of 10 to 100 longer to find a decent move than it would for any usual position. So I know there's been some talk about hybrid chess engines, and this is exactly where hybrid chess engines would, I think, play a very, very big role, is for these strange, quirky, unusual positions and evaluating them.
Yeah, I just want to say I fully agree with that. And there was actually an interesting chess problem, but I forgot who tweeted it earlier this week. And it was posted on Twitter essentially saying that even to many strong players, it takes maybe half a minute or a minute to find a mate in one in that position, just because there were so many pieces on the board in so many strange positions that just looking at it will take a long time to figure out what needs to move to deliver mate. And this is just a single move, look ahead. And I've had to look at it and was similarly initially confused. So this is a zero that it relies very heavily on intuition. So when this intuition breaks, when it's something completely counterintuitive, it might take a bit longer.
Yeah, if I may add,
yeah,
because
go for it.
It's actually very interesting because it really seems that AlphaZero has some kind of intuition or whatever we mean by this word, because at some point you remember, gentlemen, we made this test when you switched off the calculation settings, so basically AlphaZero was proposing moves, playing games without calculating at all. And what was absolutely amazing to me that we were just looking at the moves, also at what kind of candidate moves it looks at, And I can tell you, like 95 or if not more % of those moves were exactly the moves which, let's say, I would consider.
Wow.
Which would come to my mind first, before calculating. So basically, I don't know how does it manage it. I don't know, maybe Ulrich and Nenad, maybe they can explain it. But for me, it's like a normal human. I would say AlphaZero to me looks like absolutely human player with unhuman calculative abilities. But
wow,
by this kind of first idea which comes to its mind, it's totally human idea. I saw some games, no calculation. It was quite funny because the only problem was that sometimes it would blunder a piece into moves or something because, it just required, there was no calculation at all. So some very simple tactics it would miss.
Like a human would blunder if they weren't calculating at all. Just intuition.
But the moves it was making, everything in the center, rooks on the open lines. Everything he was always offering a move which is, in a second. It's not like without thinking. So it's like intuition, And that was quite surprising, and I don't know how come, what is it all about? And how does he manage it? But that's true. So it's pretty much this mixed of a strong human chess player and very strong, of course, calculation. So that I was surprised. I would be interested myself to know how does it happen? Because I'm pretty sure that all other programs which are programmed in, so to say, normal way, it would start just to offer completely random moves, without any sense, because it is based on calculation, basically. So, and here it's totally different, So that's quite amazing.
It's fascinating, and divulging off topic to provide a little bit of context from what Chess.com does with our analysis projects. I can reiterate what you're saying, Vladimir, in that one of the problems with traditional chess engines is that in order to make them weaker, the only option is to cut off their calculation to lower the depth, right? So you end up lowering the depth enough where the moves they make are completely inhuman. It's like it makes 5 good moves and then it, puts a bishop on a3 to be lost, right? So it doesn't actually have any human intuition when you remove the depth, right? And so then what you're describing is very different, right? What AlphaZero develops through the process in which it learns the game.
Basically you remove the depth to 1 or 2, with AlphaZero, as I understand, Nenad, and it still plays on the, positionally on the level of a top grandmaster.
It's fascinating.
This I don't know how. It's really fascinating.
Well, I want to build on Vladimir's comments, but come back to what Nenad just said, because it's actually, you already kind of touched on a question from the community. No surprise, Nenad. One of the questions also this was actually from Instagram. Shout out to, by the way, the last question that came about the limitations of being more powerful was from Reddit, from ConGuy9. We appreciate that. The Instagram question is from Mara Van Dime. And one of the things you said about Chess has kind of been one of the first projects that, from what we understand, as far as what DeepMind has done, and with AlphaZero, now you mentioned New Zero as kind of a new baby. But what are some of the things that the AI approach to chess that you've seen here through the machine learning of AlphaZero? Can you provide any context of what you've seen about the way AlphaZero learned chess and then ultimately mastered the game applied to other things? You mentioned video games, you mentioned maybe real life projects, maybe projects you're not allowed to talk about. I don't know, but what projects? I'm trying to summarize this question. Could you say that DeepMind has learned from AlphaZero's approach to chess, and are you using that insight to other projects not related to chess right now? Again, this question is from Instagram.
I mean, I would say definitely that chess has historically been one of the main petri dishes for artificial intelligence, to put it that way, where one can incubate ideas and use a game that we all love, and also an environment that we're all very familiar with, well, more familiar than some let's say, more difficult real world types of things, to just test ideas and come up with insights. And when it comes to practical applications of AlphaZero, I mean, there has been an increasing uptick in terms of applications of reinforcement learning in general. But there was also a paper that was published, actually not by DeepMind, but by a different group of researchers that have, at least they said that they have re-implemented AlphaZero as a system. And have done a project on using it to optimize quantum dynamics, something that obviously I know nothing about, so I can't comment on that in more detail. But think about these types of systems being used for all sorts of scientific applications where there is some kind of planning involved in order to come up with a solution. And when it comes to AlphaZero in particular, in those types of environments where you can run a simulation, let's say. But I'm going to maybe let Ulrich bring in some more practical examples, because there are many to cover.
Well, no, that was a good answer. I know you can't always comment on everything you guys are doing with this, but now coming back to what Vladimir said about the intuition, another question that came also from Instagram, from Nikolash Pravakar. And I'm going to ask Ulrich the chess question, even though Vladimir kind of mentioned it. Is there a positional intuition that you guys have seen developed, and is that useful in other ways? The question directly was, are there certain positional elements that you've seen AlphaZero value through the neural net learning process? And can you comment a little bit on what the intuition is that you've seen it develop, that Vladimir kind of touched on?
Yeah, I can mention two things. We've seen very silent prophylactic moves, like moving a king to A1, for instance, or H1, buying time. We often see the H pawn being pushed, maybe more than we see in human play. Danny, the second part of the question was, what's the implication, or how do we know it's doing it?
Sorry, say that again.
What is the second part of the question?
I guess the question was commenting on positional intuition, I guess. You know, in terms of chess, that's a specific question, a positional feel that a grandmaster has. But is there like something you guys have noticed about the machine learning process that a positional intuition is developed and even useful in other areas outside of chess?
Yeah, that is a very good question. I'm not sure if positional intuition, but I do know that the same techniques are reapplicable in other areas. And Danny, the key there is that in chess, there's a very clear reward. You know whether someone's won, lost, or whether the game is drawn. So any other system where there's a very clear outcome, the same techniques could be applied.
Okay, Vladimir, do you want to comment any more on that before we move on?
Because about intuition, we've done some work. I mean, we try to understand exactly what kind of thematics of the position AlphaZero considers. You know, I mean, before making offering a move, and yeah, we got somewhere with it. We had certain ideas, but it's still very difficult to, I mean, to structurize it and to tell exactly, you know, like, you know, first, second, third. I mean, what kind of parameters does it consider, positional parameters, to make, I mean, to offer the best move according to AlphaZero. But I think we got certain ideas. But in any case, since the thematic of our research was a little different, so we didn't, well, yet totally finalized it. But yeah, I have a certain ideas how does he think, so to say, and but it would maybe require some more work, yeah, to, if it's possible at all, to understand fully, yeah, because as I understand, maybe Nenad and Ulirak, they know definitely better about it, that actually explaining the way of, so to say, thinking of AlphaZero or any other artificial intelligence programs, and explaining the results which it gives. I mean, it's for the moment is not really possible. Yeah, I mean, we are still far from it. Because of actually fully understanding the whole process. Yeah, but maybe one day we can try to work on it, to understand and to guess and to understand how AlphaZero thinks and how does he eat. I don't know how to call this monster. How does he come to the decisions? Yeah, I mean, but
yeah.
I think we have certain guesses already, but it's still a long path to understand.
You called it a monster, and that's scary. Maybe one day it'll just decide that it's not going to play chess anymore or something like that. But hopefully that's all it decides and nothing else. But all right, well, we have, by the way, just again, shout out to everybody who's tuning in and watching. We're working through a lot of questions here. We reached out to the community, and we were given a lot of options. There's 0 ways we're going to get through everything here, but I'm going to combine a question that our staff prepared with a question that came into us from Twitter, from @ChewyChipsAhoy. That is not a branded shout out, but this was a question that actually came from a lot of different places, from Reddit, from Twitter. And I think when the papers were released and we as a community saw the variants that you chose to focus on, I want to dive into some of the specific questions about the paper itself, less about AlphaZero overall, which is kind of a simple question, Nenad. Why did you choose the variants that you did versus focusing on either A, variants that are right now traditionally more established within the current chess community, whether that be Fisher Random or even variants like Crazy House or Bug House, right? And so maybe there's a specific philosophy that the AlphaZero team has in terms of why you chose the variants you did. If you could, and all 3 of you can have a chance to comment on that if you want. I know that Vladimir and I discussed that previously about no castles, but why did you guys choose the variants you did versus some of the critiques, if you will, already established variants like Fisher Random Chess, Nenad?
Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent point. I mean, and it strikes essentially the motivation for why we started this project. So I also dabble with playing Fisher Random 1. I like it as a variant. I think Bug House I would need a drink for usually, but it's just a matter of personal taste.
Right.
But otherwise, I mean, as for the actual project, it's precisely for that reason, because people already play Fisher Random Chess.
Okay.
They know what it feels like. They know how they should play. If they like it already, they like it. If they don't like it, they don't like it. So they don't really need us to convince them to maybe consider playing it. And it's just not an unknown as to whether it's an interesting game or not. So we were not actually trying to develop a chess engine for these variants to be used for,
that makes sense.
analysis by humans, but we wanted to, put some light on these possible variations that just haven't really been played out yet, and to see if there would be of potential interest for the community. But Vladimir, maybe you also want to give a quick comment because you were proposing these ideas. So.
Not all of them. Some of them were yours also. But anyway, well, I fully agree with Nenad on this. Yeah. So the idea was to discover some new variants, and I'm sure there are lots of other adjustments which are possible to be made. But well, we have to stop at some point. Yeah. So we took those variants. But my idea was, at least I sort of one thing you see in common with each of the variants, that we have the chess starting position. Yeah. And this is, I mean, my idea was to make the adjustments, not only, of course, not all variations are like this, but actually the more, let's say, which would look more as much as possible like real chess. Yeah. So the starting position is quite important because, we are used to it. We already developed certain patterns. If you want, we are used to the aesthetics of pieces developing via the starting position. So I think it would make people maybe it would make them easier to adjust, to this kind of chess, because but of course you can play with, with different ideas, but that was one of the ideas. So let's say no castle is one of probably the most it is totally chess. Yeah, just one small rule is out, but basically it's chess. Yeah, like any other variations. But that was one of the ideas, is to make it for all people to play it and not to feel discomfort, and not to that it doesn't take too long time to understand what is going on. But one very important point I also want to say is that it's by no means, at least my idea, and I'm sure that guys are sharing this point of view, that it's by no means the idea is to substitute classical chess, or that's not the point. Actually, the point is to try to experiment, to see how it works, and to give different options. So Fisher random, excellent. Many people, they like it. Great, let them play it. I don't know, this backhouse chess, whatever. Anything. It's just to give them more options, and to see if actually maybe one of those variations will become extremely popular. But for that, what our job was to make sure that it works mathematically, aesthetically, that it sort of makes sense. Let's say it doesn't make proportion of white and black like 90 to 10, yeah, in white's favor, then you just have to throw it. Yeah. And secondly, also aesthetically, and then it's a people's choice. I offer, invite everyone to try to play, and to play different variations, and who knows, maybe people will a lot of people will like it a lot. There are some people who do not like Fisher random or other, or backhouse. They can maybe find their variation, or even have matches of 4 different variations. So that is a point, but it's not a concurrent to anyone or to any other chess. It's just it's an addition. Yeah.
Well, my next question is for Ulrich, but I want to stay with you, Vladimir, because again, you just touched on a point that was also a very common question from all the different communities. I'm going to give credit to Discord and TDZR, the very active Chess.com computer chess championship community over there on Discord. A lot of the questions ask, well, what do you see as potentially the one with the most potential to become popular? You don't have to rank them. I did a video where I literally ranked what I thought would be the most popular, but asking you, Vladimir, on that topic, do you have one? You made great comments about the self-capture, right? You really like that one, maybe just improve chess. I was very pro no more stalemate equaling a draw, but give us your vote for the Discord community and that question from TDZR. What do you see as the one with the most potential to become popular, Vladimir?
It's very subjective. It depends for what type of player, professionals, amateurs. But I would say that no castle, definitely. I like very much variation when you take your own pieces, because it adds, basically taking your own piece is a sacrifice, as you understand. It's a sacrifice, plus it's a sacrifice tempi down, because you spend time taking your own piece. So it means it just adds a lot of beautiful combinations, and doesn't take away anything from a classical chess. I also like very much Torpedo, which was an invention, by the way, of Nenad. I think it was your idea, Nenad, this Torpedo, and I really liked it a lot. It's makes very dynamic and a lot of aesthetically beautiful. Again, it's very important, aesthetic. Mathematically many things can work, but I think also it's actually very fun, a lot of fun. Torpedo, and aesthetically beautiful and extremely dynamic. Lots of interesting things happening. Okay. So those 3 are, and there is one which is extremely complicated. Also, I think it was Nenad's proposal. yeah, that is really complicated. Unfortunately, maybe for people it will be too much looking like some other games than chess, but it's also a lot of fun. It's also very interesting. But again, it's up to people who would decide what they like. I mean, I have my subjective ideas, but I mean, also moving pawns back also is very interesting because it has its own dynamics and has its own nuances and actually aesthetical, beautiful ideas. Yes, so let people decide, and that's it. I mean,
let the people decide, as they say.
Let the market decide, as they say.
Right. Well, let the market decide.
But,
and by the way, the market, you can play at chess.com/variance. At the end of the show today, Vladimir and I are going to play just one variant. We don't know. I'm going to let Vladimir choose, but at the end of the show, but you can already go to chess.com/variance and give it a try. Just don't crash the server before we get there.
Last thing I want to say about it, that what I ask people, I mean, maybe some they find it strange or unusual. Just give it a try. That's all. I mean, you never know before you try. So try and play a few games. Maybe you will not like any of them. Okay. I mean, I don't insist. It's fine. But maybe you would really enjoy a lot some of it of you. So just give it a try, and then you make your opinion. Yeah, after you try it.
No, and that's totally fair. And also, again, to be fair, the chess.com/variance, some of them are literally, we developed them when the DeepMind crew reached out to us about a month ago. So some of them still in beta, small disclosure, but we developed these variants as fast as we could because like Vladimir, we wanted everybody to have a chance to give it a try. Ulrich, I want to move on to a big question for you. This, again, also came from every community, and it's not going to surprise you. I'll give credit specifically, again, to the Discord community. But okay, as the research scientist behind this project, obviously the influence that AlphaZero had has now gone way beyond AlphaZero itself, right? I'm talking about the LC zeros, right? Leela. I'm talking about the hybrids, the now new Stockfish, the new NNUE, so new Stockfish as people are calling it, right? So there's a lot of questions here, and we can't get into all of it for sure. But I want to start with a basic one. So first of all, give your general thoughts on whether you thought AlphaZero would have this kind of impact on the open source chess engine community, but now it's not even chess engine, right? It's a machine learning chess computer community. So give your general thoughts. Did you guys foresee this kind of impact? And have you watched them closely, everything that has spawned off of your guys' work, and been impressed yourself as a fan in terms of how quickly, like Leela and others and the new Stockfish have been able to develop and improve?
Yeah, Danny, we were really surprised. I mean, I think you should remember that AlphaZero is followed on AlphaGo, and that was trained in a completely different way. So when the DeepMind team built the Go engine, the idea of actually trying a general purpose engine on Shogi and chess did not even exist. We were really surprised by the results and also by the take-up by the community. I do want to say we sit at the edges of our seats and we watch how Leela Zero progresses and how different games are played in Stockfish and Leela and a number of other initiatives. And we really find it inspiring and exciting. And actually, I must confess, I've read some of the code comments in Leela Zero and the development plan, and it looks amazing.
Okay. Well, I mean, at this point, looking at, I'm going to jump ahead here. There's a question here that I'm trying to remember because I saw it was one of my favorites, trying to highlight it. But just sticking on this, have you followed the more recent versions with the new Stockfish, the hybrids of the traditional chess engine and now, and how do you think AlphaZero would stack up to those types of if there was a match potentially in an AZ world versus the new Stockfish? What are your thoughts on something like that?
Danny, that definitely give us a run for our money. We might probably lose and spend a lot of time improving AlphaZero with all the other additional features that one might add, including adding more traditional chess engine parts to the core AlphaZero chess engine. I do want to say that we are a research company. We're not a chess engine company. So our main mission is to use AlphaZero as a launch pad into other projects and not specifically build the best chess engine.
So I can answer all the many questions that came from Reddit, Discord of when are you going to put AlphaZero in the CCC and the TCEC computer? You're not, AlphaZero is not for competitive sparring matches, you're saying?
It's the idea, and we are very happy and honored that other people take it up and run with the idea. And I would not be surprised if Lila Zero one day beats AlphaZero 100 games to 0.
Okay. Well, let me go to the next one. Then I'll ask Nenad, and let me just ask you it's a staff question, but we've been curious. So, are there any plans from the DeepMind crew to have a public version of AlphaZero available to the community?
I mean, it is something that we have, I guess, thought about at some point. But then, I mean, again, as Ulrich was just saying, I mean, as we've seen all of these other engines progress forward, taking up these ideas that came with the AlphaZero publication, I think we just felt at that point that there was, in a way, no particular need, because, if you release a piece of software and it's not trivial to release anything ever, I mean, for anyone who has ever had to do that, then you have to keep maintaining it, keep improving it, and it really becomes like a part of a business. And I mean, since we are a research company and I think just feel that this time and these resources are better spent maybe in some other way. But this is not to say that there may not be a time in the future where we do this. And to just give a counter example actually to what I've just said is that DeepMind actually does open source many of its smaller projects that are sort of easier to package up and put up on these code repositories. So we are not, against open sourcing some of our code. I mean, AlphaZero in particular is a pretty big one. So it's just a kind of a very high effort for something that may interest some fans, but may not otherwise be of other significance.
Well, that answer makes me want to jump to our. I'm gonna give another Discord question. The Discord community is super active when it comes to following the machine learning neural net, not just the competitive events, but all this stuff. So I'll ask another question from. Is that partly because of the fact that that there's still more chess to come from Discord? Again, user TDZR. Is that because the DeepMind team is still interested in chess, or is chess at this point? I'm asking, is chess at this point kind of running its course with DeepMind, and it was sort of a proof of concept for you guys to move on to other stuff, or are there more chess projects to come here? And is that something that might delay AlphaZero just being made public to everybody?
Well, in the spirit of what I was, I guess, saying earlier, since we are developing methods further, I mean, not AlphaZero as such, but just reinforcement learning methods in general, new systems, new approaches. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised that somewhere down the line there does come a new and better system. So that's something that we cannot really guess ahead if it's going to happen. But as I was saying, I mean, chess as a domain isn't really the big focus of these research efforts. It may sort of just come about that solutions that end up working for many of the other things that we are focusing on end up also working and benefiting chess. And if that does happen, I'm pretty sure that you would hear from us, and we would try to give back to the community in some other way. But also, it's worth saying that like this project has shown, our work with chess hasn't just been to try to improve the ELO of the best engine in classical chess, which is what I guess AlphaZero did when it came about initially, but rather that there are still other types of research ideas and research questions that we can potentially answer, again, using chess as a petri dish. So right. I don't know, I think DeepMind has many chess fans working there, I mean, us included. So I wouldn't exclude, future pieces of work coming out, but there isn't some big master plan that's delaying releases for sure. I mean,
okay. Well, but I think that gentlemen who are asking questions, they have they should know that DeepMind is working on much more global issues, which maybe can help humanity, like medicine and I don't know, and so on. let them work, let them do
You're
those
saying
things.
chess isn't the most important issue facing humanity? Is that what you're saying?
But they did already, they already invented internet, so to say, and you want them to start producing computers, somebody else can do it. But
Right.
I mean, I know that you guys, you're working on very important issues, which can really change the world if you want, our lives. So don't disrupt them with our chess,
No, it for sure makes sense. And and we do have a few questions to circle back on in terms of the bigger stuff. But Vladimir, I want to circle back to the papers. A question that came from Reddit, Moho1, Moho2 was the username over there from Reddit, because it was something that I asked myself as a chess player reading the papers, and I'm curious what your thoughts were. Were you surprised by any of the results? I mean, I personally looked at, for example, the stalemate equaling a win, and I thought that if this was actually something that humans played, my thought is it would affect chess and the approach to different things a lot greater than maybe it did AlphaZero. But not my opinion, your opinion. Were you surprised by any of the takeaways, by the results of the particular variants?
Yes, well, first of all, I would like to mention that, of course, my role was a minor role. Of course, Nena Tulerach, they made the main job. I mean, I was more of an advisor and maybe having certain ideas what to check and what kind of chess we can try to examine. But I was just responsible for this and for trying to understand each of the variants. What are the new patterns, how also from a very professional chess player point of view to see the aesthetics of the game. Is it really exciting, interesting, and to try to understand what have changed in each of the variants. And so for me, what was surprising, actually, yeah, that was quite surprising, and maybe even how to say, something I have to think still about is that most of this, I mean, all of those variants, yeah, more or less keep the balance of chess. So, I mean, more or less this, the balance between white and black, I mean, it's 52, 53, but not a big difference, which actually makes me think that, chess is such a strange, almost mystical game that you can make lots of quite conceptual changes, and still, there is a certain, like what they say, this golden number, or something, it still more or less stays. I was expecting that at least some of the variants would really change the balance, between white and black, or would make a game, like too short, some things are happening too short, and then everything is clear. But it's like any variation. It's completely different patterns, everything, but the structure, so to say, of chess, the balance between white and black, more or less the length of games, and so on, it still stays the same, which again makes me think that maybe, I mean, there are many, many more variants possible to create, and probably most of them would still keep the game as we know. Yes, so we can play it. We don't have to readjust our mind that so yeah, that was the most exciting and the most interesting revelation for me. And yeah, and one thing is that this stalemate mate, because this idea of trying to make chess much more decisive, yeah, it's has been there for a very long time, and I was quite surprised that actually it doesn't change that much. And I understood that, of course, in computers, I mean, AlphaZero is so strong that anyway most of the games are drawn, obviously. But even in human play, I understood that, yeah, it's not going to change that much. We will not see a huge ratio, raise of decisive games. I mean, that was a bit surprised. So to me, since one of the ideas was also to get rid of the opening theory, yeah, so this by this stalemate mate variation doesn't really serve this goal, yeah, because basically opening and 99% of middle games are staying more or less the same, yeah. And it just changes the end games, but strangely enough, yeah, the change is not so big. So basically this variation is good for somebody who really enjoys endgames. So then you can discover lots of new patterns in endgames, and it can be very interesting. But otherwise, yeah, strangely enough, yeah, it doesn't change the balance so much.
Or someone who misplays endgames all the time, maybe like me. But okay, no, great. That was great. Great thoughts on that. We're super pumped about the engagement we have right now in chat and on social media. So we're going to take a very quick break, everybody. When we come back, final thoughts and questions for the DeepMind team. We're going to read some of your questions that you gave in real time during the first hour, and then Vladimir and I will prepare to play one of these variants for fun over at chess.com/variants. So don't go anywhere, everyone. Our first and only break in today's DeepMind AlphaZero Roundtable discussion. We will be right back. And we are back here yet again with our DeepMind AlphaZero Roundtable discussion. With me, research engineer Nenad Tomashev from DeepMind. We have world champion Vladimir Kramnik, and then we have Ulrich Paki, also a DeepMind and research scientist over there at Google. Thanks for joining us. If you just got here, we still have some good questions ahead, and then Vladimir and I are going to play one of the variants that was released in the new papers, Assessing Game Balance with AlphaZero, that hit the press last week, if you will. We're going to start our social jump into the real-time community here with a question for you, Ulrich. User Golden Nose on Chess TV wanted to ask, and I'll add a little bit of context to it, just because I think that's important, that with what we understand about the machine learning process, the way that neural nets develop their brain, if you will, don't know how else to say it, right? Is there any theoretical limit to how strong you think AlphaZero could get? In that, is it just a matter of power plugged into it, or is there some other theoretical limits to the machine learning process that you think might eventually kind of slow it down?
I don't think there are any limits, Danny. I think it's possible that AlphaZero or Lila Zero, a method or technique like it, could become an optimal or the optimal chess player. The only difficulty is to actually prove that it is the optimal player. And if you know a bit of mathematics, you know that's NP hard or NP complete problem. It will take the universe of compute to actually prove that. Right. So we could only speculate that we are getting close to optimality.
Meaning more likely they solve the game before there's a limitation to their strength, right?
Yeah, I would pitch that comment kind of holds on like the general class of approaches. So when you're discussing a particular system like AlphaZero, Lila Zero, there may be some limitations in terms of the system itself. And yeah, I think that it's possible that there could be some further improvements that would make it play chess better, make it search better through these variations that it's looking at, or maybe be even better on assessing certain types of positions where maybe it's not doing so well. But as Ulrich was saying, it's kind of hard when you hit this high level of performance to sort of assess how much there is that is left and how to bridge that remaining gap. So I think that's a non-trivial question. So in principle, it's possible, it's not implausible for sure that this type of a system could keep getting stronger and stronger, but it's equally possible that there is some kind of a limit somewhere, and that maybe someone will need to adjust the algorithm in some meaningful way to overcome that gap.
Okay, that's a good answer to it. My next question comes to us from @Chris.Cotton, Hiker Heims on Twitter. I wanted to ask it to you, Vladimir, because he says obviously there's a lot of chat about the AlphaZero papers and the discussion about whether these variants could ever catch on, amongst the elite players. But his question is, what do you think any of these variants could do for beginners or kids learning the game to increase excitement? Or do you think are there any things you would comment on as the world champion in the room, only one of them, that these variants might do for beginners wanting to learn the game?
Well, first I would like to say that, again, abstractly speaking and philosophically speaking, what do we like? Let's think, what do we like in chess? I mean, what do we enjoy about chess besides winning? Yeah. But even if not, let's say winning, well, what do people like? They like to solve studies, for example. Why do we like to solve studies? Yeah. I mean, because in certain studies, the ideas are paradoxical, they're new, right. Yeah. I mean, it's not very interesting to solve a combination bishop takes h7 check, knight g5 check, queen h5, and queen h7 mate, because we know it already. I mean, right. If you know it, yeah, there is no point. So it's about finding new patterns and paradoxical patterns, which gives pleasure. Yeah, if we think about it, and this variance, actually, it's about it. It's about it's chess, but in each of it, there is a new pattern. There are some new beauties, yeah, which you discover, some new kind of ideas which you find on your own, and that is actually very enjoyable about chess. Yeah, we like chess because of that, yeah, because some beautiful games. Yeah, we all like some games, Anderson, Kiziritsky, and so on and so on. Why it's so much like, why there is such a consensus? Because it's beautiful. What is it beautiful? It is original. It shouldn't work, it cannot work, it never works, but it worked, yeah, this time.
Right.
So in a way it's about it, and that is a general concept. And even if you look at the again, continuing this matter, if we are talking about, let's say, computer games, yeah, there are some Volt, Craft, whatever, yeah, lots of games. But you know, every new year there is a certain new variant, yeah, a little bit new, improved, different. Why not to stick to one game and to play it all the time? Because people like to have something new, to have some new food for your brain, you know, new pattern. I mean, something that you know, that also develops you, yeah, your brain. So that is, I think, one of the quite important, for me, conceptual ideas, that, you know, that there is always a challenge. Yeah, every new variation is a challenge. You have to understand, to start to understand what is it all about, how to play it. Yeah. So I don't see anything, you know, it's very positive in my opinion. And for kids, actually, there are some variations which are obviously, for example, the variation where the pawn moves only one square. Actually, it's very educational, because then the theory is out. In fact, it's more positional. Yeah, you have to learn by playing this variation. You can learn how to deal with pawn structures much better actually than with the normal, because when you play 4d4 very quickly, f4, it gets, the confrontation of pawn structures are much faster. Yeah. And when you have to start with d3, e3, you know, you have to build, there are many different ways to build your pawn structure. So actually it's quite good for positional chess, for developing of positional chess. And not only this variation, for example, no castle is obviously very good for dynamics. For dynamic, for example, attacking the king, defending your king, it's clear that I mean, it's much more difficult to play. I mean, there is much less king safety. So if you want to develop certain skills, you know, of attack or defend against the attack on your king, that's a great variation. I can tell you, for instance, just to finish it, I know that Ulf Andersson, you know, very famous player, he was a very top player, and he was known for his incredible endgame skill. Yeah, he was fantastic in endgames. And I know very well, some people told me that what he was doing, that he was actually training a lot. He was just playing training games without queens. I mean, starting position, just taking off the queens of the board and then playing.
That's
and then
an
another game he would take off queens and one pair of rooks, then queens and bishops. And then you just play, you train, and finally he was winning. I mean, like almost any endgame he would have, you know, in his practical games. So of course there is on top of the joy, pleasure, and of intellectual effort, yeah, which is, of course, it's a bit more difficult, definitely, to play those variations than standard chess. You have to discover new patterns. But what is good, it's more difficult for both, yeah, for both opponents, also for your opponent. So on top of that, there is also certain educational issue for kids. Yeah, I mean, the educational value for kids as well.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. Also, inadvertent advice there for those asking for kids. If you want them to get better at endgames, just follow the Ulf Andersson approach. I never knew that story. That's fascinating.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it actually makes sense.
It does. Our next question is from user NYJetFan1624 in the Chess TV chat. Thank you for the Chess TV chat questions. The question, I'll give it to you, Ulrich. Was there anything about the training process? We know that the report said there were 10,000 games played with a second, with a minute, and all the different variants. But was there any variant that the training process to learn the game initially for the neural net was faster than the others? And so I think people are just curious. I guess the other way to ask it was, were any of the variants easier for AlphaZero to learn, or where it seemed like it mastered it more quickly than the others?
That's a very, very good question. At a first glance, not, but I suspect that maybe maybe pawn sideways would have had a marginally longer training time, only because there are a larger possibility of moves to make. because of the additional sideways pawn moves. But that's a marginal difference.
It's a margin. It's not a big difference, yeah.
Okay.
But if you imagine we put lots of new rules which would make it like twice as complicated as chess, but still chess, yeah. You think it would still be a marginal difference, yeah?
Okay.
I mean,
my
now
guess
I'm asking a question already to Ulrich because it's very interesting.
It's probably logarithmic, so it'll probably take twice as long. But
Okay.
twice as long in a matter of hours or a day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm fascinated by that answer, that you think it's that it was that simple. I mean, I guess so. There was nothing. Well, there was another question earlier. I'm going to stay on this topic. There was nothing carried over from one variant to the other. Is that correct? There was no like knowledge carried over. It was always AlphaZero starting from scratch to teach itself, or was there knowledge carried over in terms of the algorithm or the AI's approach to learning the new variant?
And then Ed?
No, I think this is kind of the beauty and the simplicity of how we were approaching this project, and that's just that everything was the same, and the system was just training from scratch every time. So, I mean, it's a valid point from the perspective of a system could learn faster if it starts with some kind of a chess intuition from either classical chess or one of the other variants that we've developed AlphaZero for. But then on the other hand, you may be running this risk that your intuition may not be well tuned to the new game, and equally you might miss some things, have some blind spots. But it's quite plausible that the system could train even faster if starting from an already, let's say, fully trained model for one of the other variants.
Yeah.
But it was quite fast anyway. Yeah, I mean, How long did it take? You know it better. How long did it take, let's say, to reach a level when you don't want anymore to improve? I mean, when it's getting really difficult to improve in each of the variants.
Yeah, so that's I guess it depends on how you count, without trying to be too mysterious about it, because it scales very well with how much resources we give it. So I think if you look back at the original AlphaZero science paper, they were mentioning like some number of hours, but then I think that AlphaZero reaches a performance that is very close actually to what it's actually going to eventually be its top performance, at something like 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 steps, but then we train it for 1 million. It really depends on how many tensor processing units we give it to train on. So it can be a matter of hours, or if we get less resources, it can also be any longer amount of time. But I think within a day, we would get the results that we were looking at back then for all these variants. So,
well, on that note, so you're mentioning the total amount of hours kind of put in, but one of the questions we had prepared, and you just made me think of it, was there ever any discussion about a different approach to the training time control? There was 10,000 games played in 1 second, the games played with 1 minute. Do you believe the results would be any different? And was there any consideration given to 5 minutes a move, right? If you just put the computer in the closet for a year, you don't have to think about it. Just let it play forever, right? Was there ever any discussion, or is it just a matter of limited resources? You can't let it play forever.
So I'm going to be quick on that, but this is an excellent question. So when we train AlphaZero, when it's learning how to play the game, it only ever plays actually less than 1 second per move. I think it's something like 1/3 of a second, the way we have it set up. So it's actually a fixed depth, fixed number of iterations in its tree of computations. And not only does it do that, but it also has some added noise to make it more diverse. So you also get to see all sorts of blunders that it doesn't want to make, but we force it to make it so that it explores what happens if those blunders are being made. But as for the games that you're referring to, so these like 10,000 games at 1 second, 1,000 games at 1 minute, those are merely the games that we have generated to inspect ourselves once the system has been fully trained. And obviously, the more games you'd like to have, the more time it takes, the more resources it takes, but it wasn't prohibitive. So we could have equally generated 10x easily the number of games we have. It's just that the way this worked in practice is that once these games would become available once they've completed, then we would all, take our own time to go through them to find some gems that we'd like to present and to compute all of the statistics that we show in the paper, which takes a lot of our time as a process. So I think if AlphaZero had played, 100,000 games at 1 minute per move, this paper would have come out in 2025 probably, because it would have taken us this long to actually go through them. But we can generate any amount of them, and we have also, I guess, been looking at various types of time controls. One thing that's just worth saying is that the longer AlphaZero thinks, the more deterministic its play becomes. So games start to get more similar, whereas when it plays at 1 second per move, let's say, then it plays more diversely because it gets more optimistic. It thinks that it can win some, positions that it actually can't, which actually makes it attack. And if you let it think forever, then everything becomes a draw. And, it's almost like you enter this state of depression where you find a defense for every single attacking motif you can think of, and then you don't even bother trying, because why bother? You're going to defend in the end.
But it's the same reason that Rapid and Blitz has become so popular amongst the world's elite human chess players, right? Faster time controls create, I guess, more excitement even for AlphaZero. It's interesting. Well, I have a couple.
Sorry, what I found really interesting is this idea that you have to force him to blunder. Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
I wish I was such a player who can blunder only if he is forced to.
Yeah, exactly. Only blunder people. I blunder. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's it is interesting though to just note that obviously there's timeline and human resources and everything, and you don't want the paper to come out in 2025 or beyond. So makes sense. Well, I want to ask a question now that came to us from the Discord community, from a couple different users actually in the active community, which is I guess I'll ask it to Ulrich first, but Nenad, you can jump in. Is there any advice you would have? Like I said, the impact that was made, you said you were surprised yourself by the impact that it has had and changed the trajectory. We know that a lot of the world's elite chess players are also using, the neural net AlphaZero babies, the Leelas, to prepare now and find new ideas. Do you have any advice for the open source developers out there that you would be at liberty to share about how to optimize Leela or optimize any of these new stockfishes that use the AlphaZero machine learning approach? Ulrich?
Danny, I don't have advice, but I have a challenge. And the challenge is that all of us on this call think with organs that are this big, that essentially run in a banana, and that are extremely computationally efficient, that runs on almost no energy at all. And all the chess engines that we see nowadays run on a fairly large number of CPUs, much bigger than we have in our heads. And as a challenge for the AI community is that this gap could be shrunk, and AlphaZero has taken a big step in shrinking it, but we've not completely shrunk it. So my challenge to the Leela Zero communities maybe to take this big, completely open research project and make chess even more human-like.
Okay, that's a fascinating response. I don't know, that's a twist ending for them. They weren't expecting to be challenged, but I think that's a fair statement, right? Make it easier, and obviously so that it can be optimized and run. You're kind of saying like make it better for the human people that want to use it on less of a CPU need, kind of, right? Is that what you're sort of challenging?
Yeah, Danny, there's still something magical that happens inside the human mind that we have not yet captured in a chess engine.
Right.
I don't do 70 million evaluations before I play a single move. I don't do 100,000 even, and yet I can still make reasonable moves. And no chess engine has really yet captured that.
Okay, well, there you go. Challenge, gauntlet thrown down. Challenge to the LC zeros and new Stockfish communities to capture the magic within the machine learning process here. So, Nenad, I want to move to playing one of these variants with Vladimir, whatever he's willing to do before we bring the show to a close. But last question. I know I asked it a little bit earlier, but any future plans you can share? You kind of said there right now. There's no mastermind plan, right? in regards to the next chess project, but is there anything you can share that the community would like to know about DeepMind and the AlphaZero team working on things from a chess perspective?
So when it comes to chess in particular,
yeah, is there anything in the future that is already in the works that you're at liberty to share, or about the AlphaZero chess project?
Well, I think that the way we tend to approach our projects, because research is always open-ended, you never know what you're going to find, is to be very serendipitous when it comes to ideas and just try very many different things and then see which one works. And also when we do our own planning processes within the company where we prioritize which piece of research we do next, we are very kind of open to starting new things and canceling things that are ongoing just depending on how they work. So I think that we're just going to have to see, because I don't think anyone even working here can guess exactly what the next thing is, because we have many things on our minds and we'll see what we get to try next. So I know that that's a non-answer, but it's the honest.
No,
truth.
it's
But I can give you mine, which is
yeah. I want to know yours.
Yeah, I actually I would like to revive checkers, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's a great game, checkers. I've played it in my childhood. I liked it a lot, and I remember that when I was a kid, 80s, 90s, checkers was still pretty popular. There were lots of kids playing checkers, and there were world championships, checker world championships, Gantvark. I remember all those names. And I haven't heard anything about checkers in the media for ages already, because I think that it just became too kind of sterilized on the top level.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I remember the last World Championship match I was following in checkers. Okay, basically, it was like 20 draws with a classical time control, then tie breaks, another 6 draws. And finally, when it was getting to blitz, somebody would win a game, and then he would become world champion. And soon after, it's... I think they basically stopped making real world championships, in checkers. And as a consequence, it became much less popular among kids or people. Yeah, I mean, very few people, unfortunately, play checkers nowadays, although it's a very good game. I mean, it's especially for some who find chess a bit too complicated.
Right.
I mean, checkers is a bit simple, but it's a very nice game. And to me, I'm absolutely sure that it's possible to find some adjustments of rules to make it a bit more complicated. And then maybe it would, we can revive a beautiful game, which I've seen, for example, today, some article historical article on Peter the Great, this Russian Tsar. He liked checkers very much. He played quite a lot. He also played chess, but actually he liked checkers even more. So yeah, it's one of the kind of dreams I have, but I'm sure it's possible to do it with many other games as well. I don't see any obstacles to it. I mean, I'm sure it's possible, but maybe not for DeepMind, again, because they have more serious, probably, and important issues to solve.
Yeah.
But in general, that would be my dream one day, because I like this game, checkers, and I would really love to follow top tournaments or world championships in checkers, but I cannot find anywhere, and how can I do that? And
makes sense. Well, Ulrich, now you have a challenge, right? You gave the LC0 community a challenge. Now you have a challenge. Although, as Vladimir said earlier, you probably have more important things for humanity. But Vladimir and I don't have anything more important than to play one of these variants now. If you want, okay. Vlad, are you already over at the? Are you logged into the Chess.com and at Chess.com variants?
Must be, yes. Let me see. Yeah, I think I am. Yeah, but I don't see any clock or anything. But
not yet. So I'm going to send you a challenge right now. Which variant do you want to play?
I don't know. I mean, choose what you want.
Why don't we play the capture anything?
Okay. So you can capture your pieces and yeah, it's for people, who would watch. So the idea of the variant, all other rules stay the same as in standard chess, but here you can capture your own pieces as well as a piece of your opponent. And I would be quite happy if my opponent would do it pretty often.
Yes.
It would save me time to take his pieces. Yeah.
I just sent you a challenge. Did you happen to see it?
Yes, should I accept?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's go.
Okay.
Here we
So
go.
okay, good.
Wow,
So it's my move, yeah?
Yeah. And remember, everyone, you can go to chess.com/variance and play yourself. We know that Nenad and Ulrich are also still watching, so let's see. We'll play e5. All right. This is so far we're playing regular chess.
This variation is very close to regular chess. I mean, basically, there are not that many possibilities like your own piece, but a lot of variations where it is possible. I mean, that's why it makes it complicated. I mean, sometimes you might just have one or two options. I mean, to do it, but you have to calculate it on each move practically.
Yeah, maybe I should have captured my H pawn when you castled with my rook.
I didn't think
should have captured it to open up a file.
Just take your c8 bishop now.
I could take my own c8
yeah,
bishop.
You can. Yeah, why not? Why not?
That would not be ideal, but all right.
Okay, let's see.
Okay, what are we gonna do? We'll try to just.
E6. Okay, I don't.
I just want to capture one of my own pieces because it sounds.
It will come. It will come. Don't hurry.
I'm sure there'll be an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to be really aggressive and look for an opportunity to capture my own piece.
Let's see if you will have any left. Yeah, at some point.
Okay. Well, I know you're preparing.
Oh, this is serious. This is.
If I can capture my own piece for an attack.
This is almost made already. Oh, it's getting scary. Okay, I'm scared. I take.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so let's okay, because we need to capture some.
Yeah, we need to capture our own piece somehow.
Yeah. Okay. I think that this is not so terrible.
Yeah. There you go. All right. He captures his own pawn.
Okay. I open up lines. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was worried about that. It's so crazy because I win a pawn when you do that, but it doesn't feel like a pawn.
Yeah. Sometimes there are some positions where it makes a lot of sense to capture your own piece. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is true. But most of the time, it's just to remind, it's better to take the pieces of your opponent still, even in this chess.
All right, now I'm going to do the same thing.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, actually, not a bad move. Yeah, because you start to threaten. Should I take some other piece of mine? I don't see why should I. I'm trying to find some piece I can take. But for now, okay. For now, no.
Ooh, that was weird.
Move back.
That was a mouse slip.
Yeah. Can you move back?
I don't know if I can take back. If you just go back to E3 with your queen, and I'll go back.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Because that was all right. Now I'll let you play queen E3 again. I don't think we can take back here yet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. I think as much as I didn't want to do that, but now.
Good.
I'm not quite sure what to do. I can't believe I'm playing self-capture with the 14th world chess champion right now.
Okay, now that makes sense. What can I take my own piece?
I want to take my own piece too, but I'm like
not yet.
All right, we're headed in.
Yeah. This I I see. Yeah, very good. Some good positional chess. Should I maybe check it?
Ah.
Let's see. How can I take something?
I'm about to get an endgame lesson.
Let's do this first.
Okay.
It's not bad at all for you. Maybe a little better for white, but
Yeah. I want to do this, but I have to.
that makes sense. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, let me try to protect. It's violent.
I've only always known one speed.
Okay, so let's see. Let's take. I'm trying to. Okay, let's take first.
Okay. Nothing else
Well, I
to
guess you better
self-capture.
take back, yeah?
I wish there was some way to like sacrifice and then self-capture for mate.
No, don't hurry. You will still have a chance to do it.
Okay.
But it's better, it's better to try to do it when it makes sense, yeah?
Yeah.
In general. Let's try this. No big problem still. Okay.
Okay, all I want to do is self-capture. That's all I want to do.
But in fact, you are trying to capture my knight instead.
Now, yeah, that's the first priority.
This is tricky. Okay, let me try to take.
All right, now we're
take.
obstacle bishops.
Okay, let's go ahead.
Uh-oh. Could actually be a bit of a surprising problem with the rook coming down.
Yes, I mean, this G8 is very important, yeah?
Yeah, rook G8 is a good one. What to do now? I guess I'll try.
Okay, let me go up.
I have to distract this bishop. Oh, man. And you're faster than me. I'm getting mated.
I mean, it's a bit of a problem. Not that it's actually a good move, yeah. Don't see exactly how to
Rook
make
D7,
it.
Rook H7. This is a classic Vladimir Kramnik endgame.
Okay, how to do it in a beautiful way. Okay, let's attack.
Oh, man. Only I could self-capture myself out of this time pressure. Okay, you got me. That was actually, I mean, I played okay. right?
No, of course, yeah, it was a fight. But you see, you see this variation with capturing your own pieces. Actually, it's very normal chess.
Yeah.
In fact, you can play it very easily because I mean, main patterns are the same. It just adds from time to time some beautiful combinations or ideas.
Right.
You know, you can see, but. Basically it's a normal chess, and most of those variations are very normal chess. I mean, you play, you don't feel like you're playing some other game. Yeah, you're playing chess, but things are not completely the same, with this idea that you can always take your own piece. For example, many endgames are different. Yeah,
Right.
let's say in opposite color bishop endgame, you know, for example, this idea that you can, you know, especially in endgame, you have pawn on a6, you put something on b7, and then you take a b7 and you promote the queen.
Oh,
So,
yeah. That would
I mean,
be
those ideas. Yeah, for example, like a simple position, I can tell you, white has, okay, king on h1, black has king on a1, doesn't matter. White has a pawn on b7 and bishop on f5, and black has bishop on b8. Okay, it's a complete draw normally, but here you have bishop c8 and next bc queen. Yeah. So this endgame you already win.
That's great. Well, and what you did with queen takes d3 in the game is like, I mean, everyone's had those experiences as a chess player, like wishing you could get rid of your own piece to open a file or something. So that was
By
let me ask you about what do you think about the idea of a gambit back on move 5, where I said maybe instead of castles, like an idea like rook takes h7. You know,
yeah, that could be possible. I mean,
interesting, right?
most of the time, I would say in AlphaZero's games, most of the time there were like 2-3 moves per game like this. But in many variations, it was a very important option. Yeah, so it changes the game. It changes the certain patterns, especially tactics. Yeah, there are a lot more beautiful tactics, but most of the moves are still the same. You still play the same game. Like rook takes h7, I would keep maybe. In your case, keep not castling yet, and maybe d6, bishop e6, and then to have rook takes h7, and maybe to try to make long castle. Yeah,
right.
In this situation. Or for white, for example, in Sicilians, for instance, yeah, very often you have this idea of rook h1 takes h2, yeah, and then you try to by the way, one very important pattern which I discovered in this chess, taking your own pieces, one very important pattern, there is no mate on the 8th of first rank. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to play h3 very often because
it eliminates the back rank checkmate.
Yeah, there is no back rank checkmate. You just can take the pawn on g7, yeah, and you escape this mate, which is there was one funny game in our article when actually black had rook e6, pawn on h6, queen h5, so he played rook takes h6, threatening queen h1 mate, and white makes some positional move for queen h1, king takes f2.
That was a great game. I covered that in the video that I did on YouTube. That was one of the best ones.
Then king took on s3 his own pawn, on d4 his own pawn, and ran to d6 in the endgame. So no, there are sometimes very beautiful motifs or attacking motifs as well. You know, and many even positional pawn structures are already not the same, because you have, for example, King's Indian. Yeah, for the people who like King's Indian, you know, you have always bishop or knight d7 takes e5 or bishop g7 takes e5 ideas, and then your bishop starts really to get into attack. Yeah,
right.
I mean, King's Indian must be quite a good opening for black there, because, you know, you have castle, you play f5, f4, g5, white is already destroying the queen side, and then all of a sudden you play knight d7 takes e5, and you just mate, you know.
And it's just over.
And maybe next knight g6, knight takes f4, and you just mate in a King's Indian style, yeah.
Right. So, no, and you go, Bronstein would be proud, right? Replacing the pawn with the knight in the thematic idea. No, I mean, I agreed with you that it was probably my favorite variant, even if it's maybe not as likely to catch on as like no castling chess like you've talked about. But I think the self-capture was obviously a lot of fun stuff.
It's the most aesthetically actually beautiful. I really like aesthetics of it, yeah, because we all like combination, we all like sacrifices, yeah. And here it's like a lot of, on each move you have to consider some additional sacrifice sometimes. Even in the game, for example, when we played, I mean, I was considering if you would have not played f5, maybe you played like f6, let's say, maybe I would consider bishop takes d3, to
Right.
start attack, to have knight c4, knight e4, and start an attack. So it always has to be considered, this kind of idea. And yeah, but also, I mean, no castle is a little different. No castle is more a variation for professional chess, I believe.
Right.
It's just to increase, and I'm sure it will increase seriously the amount of decisive games and the content of those games, because I'm sure those games, I mean, chess players will start to play from the move 3 or 5 on their own, and of course, I'm sure it would seriously lead to a serious increase of amount of decisive games. And I find it's still chess. It's just a bit more difficult to get your king safe, which is, I think it's only positive, yeah. But otherwise, it's a chess game. I mean,
and it also contributes toward eliminating opening theory and preparation in some ways, right? All the
that
preparation
was one of my
Indian.
main ideas, yeah, because especially you see, okay, as people say that it might happen that the new opening theory will be built, but it's not so simple, because you should understand the opening theory is not about force concrete variations, which is also true, of course, partly, but you cannot memorize it all. I mean, the main point that players, especially top level players, they know all patterns, yeah. And then it makes it very difficult to win a game against them, because not only they know series, they know patterns. So to develop those patterns would take a very long time. And in any case, what you can do is you can, let's say, make a choice before a game. Let's say you have 2-3 different variants, and then just 1 minute before a game, computer decides what exact variant will be used today, and that would just eliminate any preparation.
Right.
Yeah, because you will not prepare for 3 different variants. It's impossible. Yeah, and memorize every variation which is different in each variant. So that was my conceptual idea, is to try to have more content in the game. And again, I mean, just to see if it will be, maybe it will be more, maybe people will like it. I mean, and I wouldn't say more than classical chess. I believe classical chess will still stay, especially in the lower levels. I mean, people enjoy playing it, and it's right. It's absolutely right. But also one last thing I want to say, because one important moment which actually was said by Demis Hassabis himself, because he is a good player. He's like 2-3-50 player. Actually, we have even played with him in one tournament in 1992, in a junior tournament in England together. I mean, he was playing in Junior World Championship for Britain. I mean, he was a very good, I mean, promising junior. I think the best British player at some point at his age. Then he was clever enough to move to mathematics and from chess. And became, of course, a very, very big figure in the world of science and artificial intelligence. And he told me the same, that he still likes chess. He said, okay, I still have this level of 23-50, but it's difficult for me to play, on internet, for example, when I want to play, because if I want to play people, I mean, opponents of more or less of my level, most of them are kind of club players, serious club players who are studying theory.
Right.
And he says, okay, I feel I'm playing more or less the same level as them, but I'm always getting worse position out of the opening, because I know it and I don't have time to study it. Yeah. And then it's like, you're difficult to compete. You are given a handicap. And like this, you can meet, if you're a strong player, if you're a good mind who then you can just choose a variant, and then immediately both players are having equal conditions. And actually, even a weaker player, I mean, in standard chess, has more chances against a bit stronger player, because usually stronger player knows more theory. Yeah. So it's also, it's not only for professionals, but also for amateurs. I mean, for people, club players who want to play chess, who doesn't want to study, I mean, to compete in opening knowledge or memorizing variations, which I believe is usually the case, is that players who enjoy chess, for whom chess is not their profession, they want just to play, I mean, to play a game. And with this variant, non-castle chess, or let's say pawn move only one square, it's exactly the same game, just without theory. I mean, that you don't have to study 100 books before you can compete with a club player, you know, and that is I think
Keeps
it's
more
quite
people
nice.
playing.
Yeah.
The great equalizer in some ways, and like you said, keeps more people playing, and especially people who maybe loved the game but, like you said, fell out because they couldn't stick with the theory. So great points. Honestly, this whole thing has been a pretty awesome experience, and on behalf of the chess community, a huge thank you to you, Nenad, and Ulrich, the whole DeepMind crew for the contribution that will now forever live, at least at our variance site, the chess.com/variance, and I'm sure it'll become popular in a lot of other places too. So, Nenad, thank you so much. Ulrich, thank you so much for being here, both of you.
Thank you. And last thing I would like to say is that, you know, we are not in a hurry because Fisher random, I mean, people started to play it. I think he discovered it. I mean, he invented it maybe 30 years ago. And it's only like 5 years ago when it started to be really popular. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe no castle chess, I don't know, even if not now, but maybe in 20 years, it will be an official rule of chess. You never know. So in any case, I mean, if people will like it and start to play it, I would be happy. It would be great. But if not, maybe next generation. I mean, let's see.
It makes sense, and who knows? Maybe some tournaments or events coming to the streaming community soon. Spoiler alert from Chess.com, and do our part to encourage people to give it a try, and maybe have some fun tournaments and some prizes for those who want to give it. So give it a try. Vladimir, again, you were awesome. Thank you so much for joining us again and stealing the show. People love hearing from you, and we hope to catch up with you again. I don't have any other thoughts in the future of when that will be, but thank you so much for joining us.
Anytime. Thank you for inviting us. Yeah.
And again, on behalf of the whole crew here at Chess.com, thank you again to all the communities. I mean, again, we tried to touch on all of them: Twitter, Discord, Reddit, Instagram, and just the Chess TV chat. We really appreciate all the questions that you threw our way, and I know we didn't get to all of them. The list is still long here, but we hope that you're satisfied with them. On behalf of the Chess.com crew, I want to thank everybody for being here again, for my host and my guests, and we will look forward to future stuff from DeepMind and AlphaZero. And until then, you can also go to chess.com/CCC, the Computer Chess Championship, and watch the children of AlphaZero, Leela Zero, the new Stockfish, and all the open source machine learning approaches to the game being played every day. So go ahead and check that out if you didn't know about it. Again, thank you everybody for being here. Signing off on behalf of the crew here, International Master Danny Rensch, on behalf of everyone, and we'll see you next time on Chess TV.